Hello, how are you? Today I want to talk to you why is it that over 90% of people who say they've cut sugar from their diet still experience symptoms like binge eating, headaches, bloating, intestinal problems, and don't know why? Many people stop consuming sugar but still have these symptoms. And today I'm going to explain what happens in your brain, in your body, and how you can actually achieve good results. You're going to love this video, so stay until the end because you won't want to miss it. Before we start, I want to ask you, do you consume sugar in your daily life? Have you cut sugar from your coffee, from your juices? Did you replace it with a sweetener, or are you really trying to change your taste buds? I would love to see your comment. Remember to like the video because after all, this shows YouTube that you don't just like this video, but that you support my channel and trust my content as a whole. A lot of people still don't know this, but when we eat sugar, our brain releases dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter that's closely linked to pleasure, that feeling of well-being. And the area of the brain that's activated, look how crazy this is. By sugar consumption is the same area that's activated when we use illicit drugs. Harvard studies have already shown that this dopamine spike causes tolerance and leads to dependence. In other words, the more sugar you eat, the more sugar you need to consume to feel that same pleasure. Does that remind you of anything? For sure, drugs, right? Like I told you. That's why so many people say, I can even quit smoking. I managed to quit smoking, but I can't stop eating bread, sweets, or having a little cake now and then. The body really goes into withdrawal. People end up with headaches, irritability, fatigue, and even cravings. Because all of this ends up doing part of an addictive cycle, and this cycle isn't just in the brain. We know that sugar causes insulin spikes, stimulates fat storage, increases inflammation, alters the gut microbiota, and can even affect mood and mental clarity. What happens is that a lot of people say, I'm going to stop eating sugar. I don't want to put sugar in my coffee anymore. I don't want to eat sugar anymore. But they still experience these effects. All the ones I mentioned to you, and they say, where am I going wrong, Patricia? What's happening? Let's talk more about this right now. The big issue is that many people cut out added sugar. That sugar, like I told you, to sweeten a drink, a coffee, they cut out soda, but they don't realize they're consuming sugar from other foods. Often, processed foods that have sugar on the label, a hidden sugar, like for example, maltodextrin, dextrose, glucose syrup, corn syrup, or even molasses might be listed on your label. But beyond that, there are products that contain sugar, and sometimes people don't even realize it. For example, that bread roll, which isn't even a sweet bread, but has sugar in its ingredients, or a bread that's basically just made of white flour, right? A bread that's basically flour, yeast, and water will turn into sugar quickly and will have the same effects on your brain. So these foods that are rapidly converted into glucose are absorbed very quickly and enter the bloodstream very fast in the form of glucose, which is the final product of their digestion. They turn into glucose, right? And it will enter your bloodstream quickly. And when this glucose enters the plasma, your brain doesn't know if that glucose came from table sugar, from a sweet bread, or from white pasta. So that's what ends up making this more difficult for many people. It's also worth talking about the issue of excessive fructose consumption, which many people have been doing. It's not about fruit because when we eat fruit, it really does have fructose naturally present. But the fructose comes with fiber and in a more moderate amount than, for example, when you consume processed foods that have added fructose for sweetness. This is becoming more and more common in ultra-processed foods because it's a more stable type of sugar and it's cheaper. So many processed or pre-processed products contain corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup, depending on the label. It can overload your liver and turn into visceral fat. And there are studies that have shown that chronic consumption of fructose, we already know this, leads to insulin resistance and fatty liver. And nowadays, it's increasingly common to see people who don't drink alcohol having problems with fatty liver. In the past, when you talked about liver problems, about hepatic steatosis, people thought of steatosis caused by alcohol. Nowadays, that's not the case. These days, there's been a growing increase in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, which is precisely related to excessive fructose consumption since it goes straight to the liver and causes a lot of damage, as well as excessive glucose. In addition, we know that it can contribute to an increase in metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, high glucose, localized abdominal fat, elevated triglycerides, and increased uric acid. In other words, it's the perfect mix for heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and other serious metabolic problems. It's also worth mentioning that sugar doesn't just worsen your metabolism, glucose, blood pressure, and cholesterol, as I just told you. Sugar is very harmful to the brain. Insulin resistance has even been called type 3 diabetes by many researchers, and it's linked to memory loss, depression, and brain aging. So, research from the University of California shows that excess glucose can cause glucotoxicity and neuroinflammation, accelerating neural aging. So, it's not just a coincidence. People who keep their glucose more stable throughout life have a lower risk of Alzheimer's. This is a very important point for us to discuss. Another very common mistake I see is people who replace sugar with light sugar. I don't know if you've heard about it, but when you look at the label, look how crazy this is. Check it out. This light sugar is 50% refined white sugar and 50% sweetener. In other words, you're consuming a smaller proportion of sugar, but you're still consuming sugar. So, it's very important to check the label of the sweetener you're buying so you don't get fooled and end up being deceived. So, the best thing to do is to check the label and choose a good quality sweetener like stevia or erythritol, for example, which can be sweeteners that can help you get that sweet taste without the harmful effects of sugar. Of course, another good option is to retrain your palate, because naturally, we are so bombarded with excess sugar, fructose, that very sweet taste, that condensed milk, that flan with a very caramelized syrup. You even forget the taste of a fruit dessert without sugar. So try to retrain your palate. Things that can really help you are spices. Vanilla brings out a lot of sweetness. Cinnamon brings out a lot of sweetness. Nutmeg adds a wonderful aroma, and clove itself gives a very interesting contrast. So, adding more spices and relying on the natural sugars in foods is a great way to retrain your palate, to have that sweet taste without consuming so much sugar or even sweeteners unnecessarily. In the beginning, it might be harder for your body. You might get headaches, feel tired, irritable. These are symptoms of withdrawal, the release of toxins that were trapped in body fat that's now being oxidized. But after about 3 weeks, your body adapts and you'll notice your mind becomes clearer, your energy and mood improve a lot. You'll lose a lot of bloating because excess sugar causes a lot of swelling. Our immunity goes up and even sexual desire can increase, libido. So excess sugar can be harmful to various areas of your body and your relationships with others. Someone who's in a bad mood all the time, for sure this affects family relationships and even work relationships. I'm not saying sugar is the only culprit, but if you're already predisposed to mood swings, sugar can make things worse. So, 3 basic steps for you to improve your sugar consumption in your daily life. The first thing is to know how to read labels. I have an entire video here teaching you how to read labels properly so you don't get fooled by the food industry. I'll leave that video here. But I've already told you what you need to look for, right? Sometimes it doesn't say sugar, but it has inverted sugar, maltodextrin, dextrose, corn syrup, glucose, molasses. All of that is sugar. So, avoid consuming it, especially when these appear among the first ingredients on the list, because that means they're present in larger amounts. Second, make smart substitutions. Like I mentioned, spices, sweetened condiments, and even healthier sweeteners can be more interesting than sugar. And retraining your palate, this ends up being essential. There's no point in making a pudding where you only used, for example, eggs, powdered milk, a bit of coconut milk, and then trying to achieve that exaggerated sweetness of a condensed milk pudding. You need to manage your expectations and remember to gradually change your palate over the medium and long term. Your health will thank you for it. It will make a big difference. Let me know, are you going to start putting this into practice today? What are you going to try to change today to break free from this sugar addiction? I would love to see your comment. Remember to like the video, it really helps me out. And share it with someone you think will enjoy it or who needs it. Let's work together to spread this positive movement. That's what I want here on the channel. See you next time. Bye.